Omajnana Chinanjala Slakya Saksu Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namani. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharani Nirvishesha Srinyavadi Paskachari Dasatarani. Hare Krishna. Here we have another day in Kartik, and we will use our time today for studying Canto 2, Chapter 10, verses 27 till 36. So we continue the process of creation. Text 27. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Uchisriksoch Datu Malam Nirabitye Vaigudam Nirabityata Vaigudam Tatapayus Tato Mutra Utsarga Ubayasvaja. This may be an aspect of the creation we don't.
Recording in progress.
So text 27 discusses an aspect of the creation which we may not so eager about to hear, but it's also part of the creation. That thereafter, when he desired to evacuate the refuse of eatables, the evacuating hole, the anus, and the sensory organ therefore developed along with the controlling deity Mitra. The sensory organ and the evacuating substance are both under the shelter of the controlling deity. So purport: even in the matter of evacuating stool, the refuse is controlled. So how can the living entity claim to be independent? That again the same point. We are not independent. Text 28. Asisripso pura puya nabhidvaram apanata tatrapanas tato mrityo pritakvam ubayasvayam. So, translation. Thereafter, when he desired to move from one body to another, the navel, it says that my internet connection is unstable. Let's hope we stay online. So, thereafter, when he desired to move from one body to another, the navel and the air of departure and death were combinedly created. The navel is a shelter for both, namely death and the separating force. Can someone read the purport, please?
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Could I read?
Yes, Madam. Yeah.
Thank you. The Pranavayu continues the life, and the Apanavayu stops the living force. Both the vibrations are generated from the abdomina hole, the navel. This navel is the joint from one body to another. Lord Brahma was born of the abdominal hole of Garbhodakshaya Vishnu as a separate body, and the same principle is followed even in the birth of any ordinary body. The body of the child develops from the body of the mother, and when the child is separated from the body of the mother, it is separated by cutting the navel joint. And that is the way the Supreme Lord manifested himself as separated many. The living entities are therefore separated parts, and thus they have no independence.
So even in the creation, it's shown very clearly that, yes, we are part and parcels of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is even shown in the matter of creation here, that, and thus we don't have independence. Again, the main point, the same point. Text 29. Aditsor anapanamam, aditsor anapananam, asankuksyantranadayo, nadya samudrasatayos, tusti pustis tadasraye. When there was a desire to have food and drink, the abdomen and the intestines and also the arteries became manifested. The rivers and seas are the source of their sustenance and metabolism. Can someone read the small purport, please?
Maharaj, I can read.
Please, Acha Papa, please read.
The controlling deities of the intestines are the rivers, and those of the arteries the seas. Filling the belly with food and water is the cause of sustenance, and metabolizing the food and drink replenishes the bodily energies. Therefore, the body's health is dependent on healthy actions of the intestines and the arteries. The rivers and the seas, being the controlling deities of the two, keep the intestines and the arteries in healthy order.
Yeah, it is said in Ayurveda also, when you have problems with your intestines, it's good to take bath in the river. Interesting. We learn here something about health. So the Srimad-Bhagavatam is the answer to all questions. Interesting. Text 30. Nidiyasor atma mayam hridayam nirabhityata tato manaschandra iti sankalpa kama evasha. When there was a desire to think about the activities of his own energy, then the heart, the seat of the mind, the moon, determination, and all desire became manifested. So someone can read the purport, please?
Can I read?
Please, yes.
The heart of every entity is the seat of the Supersoul, Paramatma, a plenary expansion of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Without his presence, the living entity cannot get into the working energy according to his past deeds. The living entities who are conditioned in the material world are manifested in the creation in terms of respective inclinations inherent in them, and the requisite material body is offered to each and every one of them by the material energy under the direction of the Super Soul. This is explained in the Bhagavad Gita 9.10. When therefore the soul is situated in the heart of the conditioned soul, the requisite mind is manifested in the conditioned soul, and he becomes conscious of his occupation as one is conscious of his duty after waking up from slumber. Therefore, the material mind of the living entity develops when the super soul sits on his heart, after which the mind, the controlling deity moon, and then the activities of the mind, namely thinking, feeling and willing, all take place. The activities of the mind cannot begin without the manifestation of the heart, and the heart becomes manifested when the Lord wants to see the activities of the material creation. Shri Prabhupada Chai.
So it said when the living entity, after waking up from his slumber, he remembers, yes, that what I have to do. Like sleeping at night is the same thing. You get up in the morning and then, yes, you remember who you are, what you have to do. But interesting is also the relation which is made in the verse between the heart as the seat of the mind, the moon, and determination. So that's interesting. We are understanding transcendental knowledge. It's not done by the brain. That the brain is material. With the brain you can not understand something spiritual, only theoretical knowledge you can understand with the brain. But spiritual knowledge is understood through the heart. In the heart is the soul. It's to the soul. There, the Dhammi Buddhi Ugamdam, the super soul gives you the knowledge in the heart that so the heart of every living entity is the seat of the super soul, Paramatma, a plenary expansion of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So it is in the area of the heart that of course someone asks what happens if there is a heart transplant. But the super soul is in the area of the heart. It's kept there by all the airs. It's nicely kept by the subtle body in place in the heart, in the area of the heart. So without this presence, the living entity cannot get into the working energy according to his past deeds, because it is the super soul who arranges, who uses the demigods and so on as instruments to give you experience according to your past lives, according to your karma. So one wise realization, what does one do? In the beginning of the 90s, I attended in Radhadesh in Belgium a seminar by Satchinanda Maharaj. And he said, you take a piece of paper and you write on this piece of paper, today I will see myself as the observer. You put that paper above your bed. Then you go to sleep. In the morning when you get up, you look at that paper. And if you can do that the whole day, see yourself as the observer, then you are perfectly Krishna conscious. Because you see how Krishna does everything. And that's a deep meditation. That's what's going on. But we get impassioned, we think we are the doer, and we try to do so many things. But we forget that we are not. We are the doer, but we are not the doer. That's different. We are completely depending on all the arrangements the super soul makes. So the activities of the mind cannot begin without a manifestation of the heart. Yes, the heart must be there, and the heart becomes manifested when the Lord wants to see the activities of the material creation. So the Lord desires, and it happens. It starts with Mahavishnu, with his desire to create the material world and to give the living entity an experience of the material world, of becoming the controller, so called, and trying to enjoy. He gives us facility to those who desire that, but he wants them back to the spiritual world, and that is his real purpose, to bring them back to the spiritual world. Therefore, every endeavor in this material world will end up with frustration, because he wants us to give it up this tendency to enjoy. But it's all the desire of the Lord. And the desire is here subdivided and repeated again and again in all parts of the creation. The Lord desires us for our welfare, to bring us back to the spiritual world. Now, text 31. Yeah. Tvakcharvamam sarudira medomachastidātava pummaptejo maya sapta prano vyoma bhuvyayubi. The 7 elements of the body, namely the thin layer on the skin in itself, the flesh, blood, fat, marrow and bone are all made of earth, water and fire, whereas the life breath is produced by sky, water and air. So that's, you will hear what Srila Prabhupada says in the purport. Can someone read the purport, please?
The construction of the whole material world is prominently made by 3 elements, namely earth, water and fire. But the living force is produced by sky, air and water. So water is the common element in both the gross and subtle forms of all material creation, and it should be noted herewith that due to necessity, water being most prominent in the material creation is the principal element of all the 5. This material body is thus an embodiment of the 5 elements, and the gross manifestation is perceived because of 3, namely earth, water and fire. Sensations of touch are perceived due to the thin layer on the skin, and bone is as good as hard stone. The breathing air of life is produced of sky, air and water, and therefore open air, regular bath and ample space in which to live are favorable for healthy vitality. Fresh produce from the earth like grains and vegetables as well as fresh water and heat is good for the upkeep of the gross body.
So here we find so much good advice for our health. The common element is water. Water, which maintains the life breath, sky, water and air. And we have the 5 main elements, the gross elements, which are making the gross body. The common element is water. So drink sufficient pure water. That's very good for your health. And live in a place where you have ample space, not in a small room somewhere you can't move. Not good for your health. Take regular bath. Very important. Devotees take at least twice a day bath. Better 3 times. A sannyasi should take 3 times bath. That's the prescription. Regular bath. That's yes, and that's good for your healthy vitality. And eat fresh produce like grains and vegetables every day. Fresh vegetables. So that's good for health. So water is the common element in both the gross and subtle forms of the material creation. Thus water is most prominent in the material creation. It's the principal element of all the 5. So there is health advice here. The breathing air of life is produced of sky, air and water, and therefore open air, regular bath and ample space in which to live are favorable for healthy vitality. We have Vastu gives more advice how to organize your house and to build it in such a way that it will support these principles. So fresh produced water and heat are good for the upkeep of the gross body. In this age, it's very difficult to get pure water. I remember in the 60s, at least in Belgium, the water from the tap was quite pure, you could drink it. But then a few later finished, and then all these plastic bottles came up that didn't exist in my youth. That came later. All these bottles, first in glass, then in plastic. So it's difficult today to get pure water. Of course, I'm in a beautiful part of Canada here, and here it's a very nice country. It's still pure water. Although yes, it's difficult to get. And pure food. That I remember in the 20 years ago I was traveling with Prahlad Nanamaraj to the Balkan states. We were in Serbia. Serbia is a communistic country, and it's it's considered poor people. But we were traveling there, and the vegetables and the fruits there have really taste. They are very good. So they are very rich. They have vegetables and fruits that have taste. Today it's very difficult. You buy things in the shop and it looks nice, but it tastes rotten. It has no taste. So it's difficult to get pure vegetables even today. And it will become more difficult with the progress of Kali Yuga. So that's real health, to have vegetables and fruits that have taste, to have pure water. That's good for our health. But the vegetables, there is nothing inside today. My breakfast here, half of my breakfast are food supplements, because there is nothing in the food anymore. It doesn't give you the vitamins you need. So we hear of this importance here, the importance of nice vegetables and fruits. Therefore, we are advised to, and Srila Prabhupada wanted that, to have our own farms and our own food growing. It becomes so important with time going on so Prabhupada's words prove to be true. This is very important. So, that's the answer to all questions, the Bhagavatam. If you want health advice, it's just in the purports here. Text 32. Gunatmakam intriyani putate prabhavam guna mana sarva fikaratma buddhir vijnana rupini. So in this verse you have prabhava, and prabhava means influenced by, in the word for word translation. When Bhakti Charamaj gave me the name Bhakti Prabhav, he said, now your name is Bhakti Prabhav. Now with your influence of bhakti, of your devotion, you preach all over the world. That was his instruction to me. So Prabhava or Prabhav means influence. Now, but this influence here in the verse is about material ego. The sense organs are attached to the modes of material nature, and the modes of material nature are products of the false ego. The mind is subjected to all kinds of material experiences, happiness, distress, and the intelligence is the feature of the mind's deliberation. Someone can read the purport, please.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, please read.
Thank you. Illusioned by the material nature, the living entity identifies with false ego. More clearly, when the living entity is entrapped by the material body, it at once identifies with the bodily relationships, forgetting his own identity as spiritual soul. This false ego associates with different modes of material nature, and thus the senses become attached to the modes of material nature. Mind is the instrument for feeling different material experiences, but intelligence is deliberative and can change everything for better. The intelligent person, therefore, can attain salvation from the illusion of material existence by proper use of intelligence. An intelligent person can detect the awkward position of material existence and thus begin to inquire as to what he is, why he is subjected to different kinds of miseries, and how to get rid of all miseries. And thus, by good association, an advanced, intelligent person can turn towards the better life of self-realization. It is advised, therefore, that an intelligent person associate with the great sages and saints who are on the path of salvation. But such association, one can receive instructions which are able to slacken the conditioned soul's attachment for matter. And thus the intelligent man gradually gets rid of the illusion of matter and false ego and is promoted to the real life of eternity, knowledge and bliss.
Hare Krishna. That's a very deep purport, that when the living entity is entrapped by the material nature, he at once identifies with the bodily relationship, forgetting his own identity as the spirit soul. Because we wanted to take Krishna's position, Krishna brought us in illusion to the three modes of material nature. And that false ego is what the material manifestation, what it makes going on. Wow, it's the stimuli or the impetus behind the creation. Because we will hear in the third canto that Karnodakasai Vishnu, he will put into Brahman the three modes unmanifested by his glance. And then he injects time, and he injects the living entity. And then this pradhan starts to move. Why? Because of the living entities. Living entities desire, they manifest their false ego. And that false ego, combined with the mode of goodness, will create the mind and all the demigods that go together with that. And it creates false ego combined with passion, creates intelligence. That I think if you have a second, I will stop the sharing for a moment and I will visualize that, because I have an overview of that, and I think I will find it quickly if Krishna willing. Yeah, that we have here, and that's it. Then we have, because I wrote a handbook for the study of the first canto, from the first canto of the Bhagavatam. And I think I have it here, second materials. It's not that. Okay, it's in the handbook. Okay, I know where it is. Various material. Guidelines. Okay, section 1. It's in the second lesson. We are nearly there. But it's interesting to see that visually. These are the 10 topics. Let's see. We find it here. Yeah. I have it here. I will now share it with you. Just a moment. Close. Share screen. So you see on the screen here, Bhagavati of Pradhan, that so the Lord glances on it and put the unmanifested three modes into Brahman, and that's called Pradhan. And then the Lord glances over it. Then the Mahatattva appears, because Pradhan becomes disturbed. These three modes of nature lose their equilibrium because they are disturbed by the desires of the living entities which have been injected by the glance of the Lord. And then their false ego becomes manifested. And false ego combined with goodness creates the mind and the senses. That's called Vaikarika. This is from the third canto, that we will discuss that later in more detail. And here false ego, against the false ego combined with passion creates intelligence. One can say intelligence is finer than the mind. So why is that? That intelligence is in passion? Well, we come to this material world to make plans to enjoy, and for that you need an intelligence in passion. And therefore it's created by passion to make plans for enjoyment. But it does not mean that the intelligence has to remain in passion. And the false ego combines with tamas, and sound, touch, form, taste, smell, and all the presiding deities, and the 5 elements are created. So that's a summary of this creation, which we will discuss in the third canto. So the living entity is entrapped in the material nature, and it identifies with the body. There's the influence of lust. It identifies with the body. So this false ego associates with different modes of nature, and thus the senses become attached to the modes of material nature. And the mind is the instrument for feeling different material experiences, the emotions, the feelings of happiness and distress, and thus the senses become attached to the modes of material nature. Yes. The mind is the instrument for feeling different material experience, but the intelligence is deliberative and can change everything for the better. So with our intelligence we can control the mind. But we can direct only the mind and control it if it's directed with spiritual intelligence. The intelligence must direct the mind to act as a spirit soul, not as the body. So an intelligent person, therefore, can attain salvation from the illusion of material existence by proper use of intelligence. Proper use of intelligence. That's the importance of transcendental knowledge. But Krishna explains that in Bhagavad Gita 4.10, Vita Raya Bharyakoda Manmaya Mama Pashita Bhova Jnana Tapasa Puttamat Bhavam Agata. Many great sages have become purified from fear, anger and attachment. Fear, anger and attachment, they became purified from it. They became purified by transcendental knowledge, by intelligence. So with our intelligence, yes, can use our intelligence to become purified. And if we are purified, then we can develop love for Krishna. So intelligence is very important. The intelligent person, therefore, can attain salvation from the illusion of material existence by proper use of intelligence. In the 13th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says the same. One who understands the position of the soul, the super soul, and the field, and the knowers of the field, and so on, he can attain liberation. He can liberate himself from the entanglement in material nature. That's the importance of intelligence. So an advanced, intelligent person can turn towards the better life for self-realization. That get rid of the life of illusion and get promoted to a real life of eternity, knowledge and bliss. So we need intelligence, not foolish. Yesterday evening I gave a class and someone said, yes, I'm completely satisfied. He was saying I'm liberated. But I asked him, yes, are you sometimes lamenting or hankering? And he told me, in that I will also be satisfied. But he does not understand that this hankering and lamentation, if you do that, that's the symptom of not being satisfied. That's what Krishna says. So we need to be humble, humility. Otherwise, illusory energy will drag us away. Let us make things so many things. But with our intelligence, if we are submissive, inquiring from the spiritual master, we get the intelligence to do and what not to do. So it's not that we have to wait that we get the mercy of Krishna to liberate ourselves. No, we can use our intelligence to do that. With the mercy of Krishna we will be able to make progress. So this get rid of a life in illusion, get promoted to the real life of eternity, bliss and knowledge. Because that's what we want. The more we make spiritual progress, the more we feel satisfied, the more we will progress towards our spiritual goal. Good, I will bring again on the screen the sharing, and we will read text 33. Eta bhagavato rupam stulam te vyaritam maya maya tibis savar varaner astabir bayar afritam. Thus by all this the external feature of the personality of God is covered by gross forms, such as those of planets, which were explained to you by me. So, external feature of the Supreme Personality of God is covered by gross forms. So what we heard about is the subtle form of the creation, which is this Virat Rupa. That's subtle, we cannot see. But it's covered by a gross body, and these are all the planets and all these bodies and so on. That's good. We will read the purport. Can someone read the purport, please, of 33?
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
May I manage?
Please do.
As explained in the Bhagavad Gita 7.4, the separated material energy of personality of Godhead is covered by 8 kinds of material coverings: earth, water, fire, air, sky, mind, intelligence, and false ego. All these are emanations from the personality of Godhead and his external energy. These coverings are just like the coverage of clouds for the sun. The cloud is creation of sun, yet it actually covers the eyes so that one cannot see the sun. The sun cannot be covered by the clouds. The cloud can at most extend a few hundreds of miles in the sky, but the sun is far greater than millions of miles. So a 100-mile covering is not competent to cover millions of miles. Therefore, one of the various energies of Supreme Personality of Godhead cannot, of course, cover the Lord, but these coverings are created by Him to cover the eyes of the conditioned souls who want to lord it over the material nature. Actually, the conditioned souls are covered by the illusionary creative cloud of matter, and the Lord reserves the right of not being exposed to their eyes, because they have no eyes of transcendental vision, and because they cannot see the personality of Godhead, they therefore deny the existence of Lord and the transcendental form of the Lord. The covering of gigantic material feature is accepted by such men with poor fund of knowledge, and how this is so is explained in the following verse.
But this covering of the Virat Rupa are also our coverings. That the same coverings, this gross and subtle body, are coverings of the soul. And with these eyes we can see the gross matter, but we cannot see ourselves. For this we have to revive our spiritual eyes, that we cannot understand who we are. So the 8 coverings of matter here, they are created by the Lord to cover the eyes of the conditioned souls who want to lord it over the material nature. We have been pushed in this material machine to live out our tendency to enjoy separate from Krishna. And we forget ourselves. And of course, because we have material consciousness, Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Nam prakasha sarvasya, this is Nam prakasha sarvasya, I think it's 725. Yeah, Yogamaya samavrita, mudajam nabijanti loka mam ajam afyam. I'm never a manifest to the foolish and unintelligent. Krishna is speaking about us. For them, I'm covered by my eternal potency, and therefore they do not know that I am unborn and infallible. So two coverings is covered by his external potency here as a Virat root, and by his internal potency. That's so even those who attain liberation and want to merge in the Brahma Jyoti, they still don't see Krishna, because he's still covered by his internal potency, by his effulgence, his Iran Maya. And that's what's explained at the end of Shi is Upanishad. There at the end, the devotee, the seeker prays to please remove your coverings. I want to see you. Yes, that's our situation. Because they have no eyes of transcendental vision, and because they cannot see the Supreme Personality of Godhead, therefore they deny the existence of the Lord and his transcendental form. Avajananti mamuni maninam tanum ashritam. Yes, they don't know that. So how can we see the asraya? Because Sukadev Goswami is still describing the summum bonum, the asraya, or what leads us to understand the asraya. And it's bhakti that we need. But before developing bhakti, we need to know what the asraya is. You cannot develop love for someone you don't know. So we get to know Krishna here. How is manifest in this world? That we will hear later at the end of the third canto, also the teachings of Lord Kapila. That we will go in the third chapter to the creation again and the change, and it will say there, yes, we have to change our attachment. Pashangram acharam pasham atmana kavyovitu saiva sadusukreto moksadvaram apavitam. So, attachment to material things is the cause of our entanglement. But we should transfer that same attachment to the sadhus and hearing about Krishna from them. And then we are on the path of liberation. Because by attachment to the sadhus, we become attached to Krishna. And that's the process we will hear in the next canto, which will come soon now. Yes. So we go to text 34. Ataparam suksmatam suksmatamam avyaktam nirvisheshanam anadi matyani danam nityam van manasa param. Therefore, beyond this gross manifestation is a transcendental manifestation finer than the finest form. It has no beginning, no intermediate stage, and no end. Therefore, it is beyond the limits of expression or mental speculation, and is distinct from the material conception. So, the transcendental manifestation is beyond even this subtle form. It has no beginning, no intermediate stage, no end. It does not go to these stages, as in it remains as it is. Therefore, it is beyond the limits of expression or mental speculation. So with our brain and our minds, we cannot understand this. We cannot understand with a material mind, material intelligence, spiritual matters. And it is distinct from the material conception. So, if someone can read the purport, please.
Maharaj, I can read, right?
Yeah, please, Ajay.
Thank you. The gross external body of the Supreme is manifested at certain intervals, and thus the external feature or form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is not the eternal form of the Lord, which has no beginning, no intermediate stage, and no end. Anything which has a beginning, interim, and end is called material. The material world is begun from the Lord, and thus the form of the Lord, before the beginning of the material world, is certainly transcendental to the finest or the final material conception. The ether in the material world is considered to be the finest. Finer than the ether are mind, intelligence, and false ego. But all 8 of the outer coverings are explained as outer coverings of the Absolute Truth. The Absolute Truth is therefore beyond the expression and speculation of the material conception. He is certainly transcendental to all material conceptions. This is called Nirvisheshanam. One should not, however, misunderstand Nirvisheshanam as being without any transcendental qualities. Visheshana means qualities. Therefore, Nir added to it means that he has no material qualities or variegatedness. This nullifying expression is described in 4 transcendental qualifications, namely unmanifested, transcendental, eternal, and beyond the conception of mind or word. Beyond the limits of words means negation of the material conception. Unless one is transcendently situated, it is not possible to know the transcendental form of the Lord.
Thank you, Ajahn Prabhu. So anything which has a beginning, an interim, and an end is called material. The material world began from the Lord, and thus the form of the Lord before the beginning of the material world is certainly transcendental to the finest or the final material conception. So the Absolute Truth is beyond the expression and speculation of material conception. So here you have this word nirvishesham. Vishesham means qualities. Therefore, nir added means that he has no material qualities of variegatedness. So this is a nullifying expression which is described in 4 transcendental qualifications. First, the unmanifested, second, transcendental, 3, eternal, and beyond the conception of mind. These are the 4 points Srila Prabhupada makes. That for us, the transcendental qualities of the Lord are unmanifested. It's transcendental. It's eternal. And we cannot conceive it with the mind or with words. So beyond the limits of words means negation of the material conception. Unless one is transcendentally situated, it is not possible to know the transcendental form of the Lord. So one must be transcendentally situated. Mamsyo vyabhicharana bhakti yogana sevate sakutam samatichetam brahmabhuya kalpate. By unalloyed devotional service, one becomes immediately transcendentally situated by pure devotional service. But the Virat Rupa is the goal of the pantheists. They say that since everything is non-different from God, therefore everything is God and worshipable, they say. But these pantheists are materialists who try to be spiritualists. They did not give up yet their false ego. That's the problem. Now text 35. Anoni Bhagavat Rupe Mayateyi Anuvarnite Rupe Api Nahinanti Maya Shriste Vipashita. Neither of the above forms of the Lord, as just described unto you from the material angle of vision, is accepted by pure devotees of the Lord who know Him well. So devotees do not accept the Virat Rupa as a form of the Lord. Interesting. Can someone read the purport?
I can read Maharaj.
Please.
The impersonalists think of the absolute personality of Godhead in two different ways as above mentioned. On the one hand, they worship the Lord in His Vishwarup, or all-pervading universal form, and on the other hand, they think of the Lord's unmanifested, indescribable, subtle form. The theories of pantheism and monism are respectively applicable to these two conceptions of the Supreme as gross and subtle, but both of them are rejected by the learned pure devotee of the Lord because they are aware of the factual position. This is very clearly mentioned in the 11th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, which records Arjuna's experience of the Vishwarup of the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna. Ajastapuram rishitosmi drishtva ayena cha parivatitam manome tadeva me darshaya deva rupam prasida devesha jagan nivasa. Arjuna,
I will read first now the translation of this verse from Bhagavad Gita. After seeing this universal form, which I've never seen before, I'm gladdened, but at the same time my mind is disturbed with fear. Therefore, please bestow your grace upon me and reveal again your form as the personality of Godhead, O Lord of Lords, O abode of the universe. Now you can continue reading this paragraph.
So, Arjuna, as a pure devotee of the Lord, never previously saw the contemplated universal form of the Lord, Vishwarup, but when he did see it, his curiosity was satisfied. But because of his attachment as a pure devotee, he was not happy to see that form. Indeed, he was afraid to see such a gigantic form of the Lord. He therefore prayed to the Lord to assume his four-handed Narayan form, or his Krishna form, which alone could please Arjuna. Undoubtedly, the Lord has the supreme potency to exhibit himself in multifarious forms, but the pure devotees of the Lord are interested in his forms as eternally exhibited in the abode of the Lord, known as Tripad Vibhuti, or Kingdom of God. The Lord in the Tripad Vibhuti abode exhibits himself in two forms, either with four hands or with two hands. The Vishwarupa exhibited in the material manifestation has unlimited hands, unlimited dimensions, with everything unlimited. The pure devotee of the Lord worship him in his Vaikuntha forms as Narayan or Krishna. Sometimes the same Vaikuntha forms of the Lord are in the material world, also by his grace as Sri Rama, Sri Krishna, Sri Nrsimhadev, etc. And thus the pure devotees also worship them. Usually the features shown in the material world have no existence in the Vaikuntha planets, and thus they are not accepted by the pure devotees. What the pure devotees worship from the very beginning are the eternal forms of the Lord existing in the Vaikuntha planets. The non-devotee impersonalists imagine material forms of the Lord, and ultimately they merge into the impersonal Brahmajyoti of the Lord, whereas the pure devotees of the Lord are worshippers of the Lord. I lost my place.
Both in the beginning?
Yes, worshippers of the Lord both in the beginning and also in the perfect stage of salvation eternally. The worship of the pure devotee never stops, whereas the worship of the impersonalist stops after his attainment of salvation. When he merges into the impersonal form of the Lord known as the Brahmajyoti, therefore the pure devotees of the Lord are described here as Vipashita, or learned, who are in knowledge of the Lord perfectly.
Yes, Arjuna was not happy to see the universal form. Because his attachment was that of a pure devotee. With this universal form you cannot have a relationship. It's not possible. So therefore he prayed to the Lord to see his full-armed form, Narayan, or his Krishna form, which alone could please Arjuna. So the pure devotees are interested in the Lord's forms as eternally exhibited in this Tribat Vibhuti, or the kingdom of God. So pure devotees worship eternal forms of the Lord existing in the Vaikuntha planets, because this Virat Rupa is the subtle form of the universe, and it's also temporarily manifested. So pure devotees worship eternal forms of the Lord existing in the Vaikuntha planets. The worship of the pure devotee never stops, whereas the worship of the impersonalist stops after the attainment of soul salvation, when he emerges in the impersonal form of the Lord known as Brahmajyoti. So they think, realization of Brahman is higher than worship of Krishna. They worship these forms of the Lord, and they think, until I become God, I merge, and then it's not necessary anymore. That's their idea. Now we are going to the last verse of today, verse 36. Savacha vacha kataya bhagavam brahma rupadrik nama rupakriya tate sadharma karmaka para. He, the personality of Godhead, manifests himself in a transcendental form, being subject of his transcendental name, qualities, pastimes, entourage, and transcendental variegatedness. Although he is manifested by all such activities, he appears to be engaged. Okay, this is the last purport for today. Maybe someone can read up to just after the verse, the purport.
I can read.
Please, moderator.
Whenever there is a need of material creation, the transcendental personality of Godhead accepts forms in the material world for creation, maintenance, and destruction. One should be intelligent enough to know his activities in truth and not be biased to conclude that he descends to the material world by accepting a form created by material nature. Any form accepted from the material nature has its affection for everything done in the material world. A conditioned soul who accepts a material form for undergoing a certain term of material activities is subjected to the laws of matter. But here in this verse it is clearly stated that although the forms and activities of the Lord appear to be the same as those of a conditioned soul, they are supernatural and impossible for the conditioned soul. He, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is always unaffected by such activities. In the Bhagavad Gita 4:14, the Lord says, should I read it, the verse in Sanskrit?
Yeah, the Sanskrit.
Namam karmani lim panchi name karma phale spriha iti mam yo bhi janati karma bhirna sabadhyate.
So, someone can read the last part of the purpose? Someone else? Or 14.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah, please read.
The Lord is never affected by the activities which he apparently performs by his different incarnations and personalities, nor does he have any desire to achieve success by fruitive activities. The Lord is pulled by his different potencies of wealth, strength, fame, beauty, knowledge, and renunciation, and thus he has no reason for physical exertion like the conditioned soul. Therefore, an intelligent person who can distinguish between the transcendental activities of the Lord and the activities of the conditioned souls is also not bound by the reactions of activities. The Lord as Vishnu, Brahma, and Shiva conducts the three modes of material nature. From Vishnu is born Brahma, and from Brahma is born Shiva. Sometimes Brahma is a separated part of Vishnu, and sometimes Brahma is Vishnu himself. Thus Brahma creates different species of life all over the universe, which means that the Lord creates the whole manifestation either by himself or through the agency of his authorized deputies.
Thank you so much. So the verse again. He, the personality of Godhead, manifests himself in a transcendental form, being subject of his transcendental name, qualities, pastimes, entourage, and transcendental variegatedness. Although he is unaffected by all such activity, he appears to be so engaged. So wherever there is a need of material creation, the personality of Godhead accepts forms in the material world for creation, maintenance, and destruction. That we will hear again in detail in the third canto. That we as conditioned souls, we accept also a material form for undergoing a certain term of imprisonment in this body, a certain term of material activities under which we are under the laws of matter. But here in this verse it's clearly stated that although forms and activities of the Lord appear to be the same and those of the conditioned soul, they are different. These activities are supernatural and impossible for the conditioned soul. So we can't lift Govardhan as Krishna did. We can't deal with elephants as Kuvalaya Pida and so on. That it's not possible for us. Because the 4.14 of Bhagavad Gita is quoted, Namam karmani limpanti Name karma phalispriya itimam yobijanati karma birna sabatyate. There is no work that affects me, nor do I aspire for the fruits of action. One who understands this truth about me also does not become entangled in the fruitive reactions of work. And that's interesting. When we understand this, does not become entangled. When one understands one position, does not become entangled. And that's because that's the position of the soul. The soul is never entangled. That's explained in chapter 13, verse 30. Verse 30 is a very challenging verse to understand. Prakriti karmani kriyamanani sarvasa yapashati tatatma makartaram sapashati. One can see that all activities are performed by the body which is created of material nature and sees that the self does nothing actually cease. And further, text 32. Those with the vision of eternity can see that the imperishable soul is transcendental, eternal and beyond the modes of nature. Despite contact with this material body, or Arjuna, the soul is neither does anything nor is entangled. You just have to realize that. Not easy. Very difficult to understand this for our conditioned brains. But so the Lord has no reason for physical exertion like the conditioned souls who have to work very hard. Therefore, an intelligent person who distinguishes between the transcendental activities of the Lord and activities of the conditioned souls is also not bound by the reactions of activities. That's what Krishna says in Bhagavad. You try to understand my position. He says, he makes it very clear, 4.9, Janma karmas medvam yome veti tattva tyaktvam punarchaman naiti mam itusarana. One who understands my activities, my pastimes, it is not take birth in this material world, because if you understand who Krishna really is, then we understand who we are and what our relationship is. And then you start to act in that relationship. That's devotional service. Without thinking you are the body or the mind. You use the body and the mind as instruments. But it takes a while before you can do that. First, we have to purify ourselves. And then that will become more easy. So Brahma creates the different species of life all over the universe, which means that the Lord creates the whole manifestation either by himself or through the agency of his authorized deputies. Yes, that's Brahma, the Visarga, that we will hear of that later. Tomorrow on Monday we will discuss verses 37 till 42. So any questions, comments, please?
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you very much.
Hare Krishna.
So Maharaj, this description is about associated with human bodies, which is the highest of the 8.4 million species. Do we have any kind of information about lower species of lower bodies, like plants and aquatics, because their construction of the body is different. We have a heart, we have arteries, we have intestines. Other species have different kind of arrangement. Or maybe we just have to expand this idea and say, okay, these are also, of course, means other species. But I'm just wondering, is there description anywhere in the Vedic literature about other species, about creation of other species?
Yeah, of course. We will hear of that later. How they are the first plants, birds, and so on. They have been created by Kashyapa Muni. We will hear about it in detail. That also, yes, this evening it's Kartik. I have to speak about Managriva and Alakuvera, who became trees, and how they became trees was clearly explained. The Muni said, yes, you like to stay naked, you will stay naked for some, as trees, sometime, so that you can think about your activities. But about the construction of plants, and that's interesting. Plants have intelligence. That because when you have a plant, you put it in your room, you have a plant, it will turn its leaves towards the sun. It knows where to get the sun for the photosynthesis. That is intelligence. That is intelligence. Of course, it's not much developed, but they have also intelligence. That, So, it is said if you take nicely care of the plants will flourish if you give them your love. It's also interesting, that concept. It are living entities. So when we deal with plants always respectful. If you have house plants in your home, treat them nicely. These are living entities. That we should be merciful to all living entities. Yes, that's. We treat animals. Animals should stay outside the house. Not that we cannot love them, but they should stay outside. That's a regulation of the scriptures. Yeah. But yes, so many living entities will be created. And not only living entities, we can see also subtle living entities are there. Ghost spirits and oblogins are all described. So we cannot see them, but they are there. And a devotee, when his consciousness develops and goes to transcendental consciousness, one can see these subtle beings, feel them, feel their presence. So there is, if we study the Bhagavatam, we become aware of what is going on in this material world. And again, the answer to all questions. But yes, creation of plants, it is, of course, it's true that one living entity is a food for another in this material world. So plants are our food. But still, yes, we kill them, but we offer them to Krishna. And by that we are merciful to them. They get very soon the human form of life by that process. That's very. That's what I can say. Thank you. Yeah, okay. Nilamani Prabhu, please.
Yes, Maharaj. So, in this section, we were talking about a little bit about Paramatma in the heart and so forth. And you're also mentioning that actually within our bodies there are also other living entities and cells and so forth. So I was wondering, do we just have one form of Paramatma in our heart, or is Paramatma is actually accompanying atoms and or in the other life forms within our bodies? Within our bodies there are multiple instances or multiple forms of Paramatma that exist. How do we understand this?
Yeah, the problem is that your intelligence will go into a short circuit if you understand the reality. Because yes, Paramatma is in our heart. There is one Paramatma who directs us. But Paramatma is in every cell in our body. And between every cell, between every atom, Paramatma is everywhere. It makes also the existence, like this book, as a color and a warmth, a temperature. It's Paramatma within who makes that. So, Sarvagata. We are living entities are everywhere, but also the super soul is everywhere. And it's inconceivable that in the 11th canto it is said, and now I'm going to confuse you further, it said that the super soul is the soul of all souls, is even within the soul. And in Bhagavad Gita it is said the soul is uncleavable, not possible, but still is in the heart of our soul. So don't try to understand this by the laws of material nature. Super soul is beyond that. It's omnipotent. When someone asked my Guru Maharaj, can Krishna make Govardhan so heavy that he cannot lift it? And my Guru Maharaj said yes, and still he will lift it. So that's beyond our conception. But yes, the super soul is everywhere. So we cannot be separated from him, but we have separated our consciousness from him. And that's the problem. With this illusion, these layers of illusions, which we will discuss again in next canto, in the creation, in the Visarga, the creation of Brahma. Maybe we'll also address it tomorrow, or I think. That, but this illusion is very deep. But by the grace of the study of the Bhagavatam, Srila Prabhupada's purport, we start to understand what's going on in this world. Does that help, Lamaniko?
Okay, thank you, Maharaj.
Don't be disappointed that I confused you. Anyway,
No.
we will hear more about that later, in especially the 11th canto also. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Mother Kanta, please.
Hare Krishna. Excuse me, maybe my question is a little bit mundane, but I'm curious. We were hearing that we are absolutely dependent on the demigods who are controlling our body in all senses. And also we read in the, for example, in the 29th verse that some means can improve our health, our gross body. And I have a question, how can we really improve our health if it's already predestined by the demigods who are giving us the results of our karma and certain diseases and some defects? Can we really improve it?
Yes, and that's a good question. Finally, providence will prevail. That's true. But at the same time, with our intelligence, we can improve our situation to the extent that Krishna allows. And I give you an example. We are in this material world, and it's up to us. We hear Bhagavad Gita. We can organize our life in a mode of goodness, or we can go into passion and ignorance. That's our choice. If we mold our life in goodness, we will suffer less and we will be more healthy. So if by use of our intelligence, we can improve our situation, but health at the end, disease will come, and you have to leave the body. But certainly, you can make it more bearable for some time at least. That by using our intelligence and follow the advice. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, don't sleep too much, not too less. Don't eat too much, not too less. If you do all these things, then you can mitigate all the sufferings in the material world. So that is Krishna's advice. So that's what we can do. And then we have to see what Krishna does. We do our best to improve based on his advice. Does that help, Amerikant?
Oh, yes, thank you very much.
Okay. Good.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
I'm sorry, I didn't change my name. Sorry. In the text 34, it said the gross external body of the Supreme is manifested at certain intervals. Srila Prabhupada talking about like when the Lord shows his Virat Rupa, like for example to Duryodhana, or he shows his Virat Rupa to Arjuna and sometimes other places. Is that what it is?
Yeah, it is the same Virat Rupa that he gave Arjuna eyes by which he could see the subtle form. But still, Krishna said to Arjuna, no one has seen this universal form before. So it was a specific universal form. So it means that, yes, Krishna can show different universal forms according to the capacity of to see which he gives us. So we are dependent on Krishna, that in all aspects, even Arjuna is dependent. He needed divine eyes and he got them from Krishna. So that's the point, yes, that universal. But the universal form is like the subtle form on which the gross form is born. It is built. It was a blueprint for Brahma to build that, and that is also the subtle form. When we leave our body, our subtle body takes already the form of the next body. It takes already this form. So, and then the super soul leads us to the next destination and our next mother, and there the body is constructed, the gross body is constructed on the subtle form, but the subtle form is there. It's like you see a skyscraper, and first they make a metal construction, and then after that they build it, they fill it up, and that's what Brahma does. That this is the indication also. This subtle forms, he creates this from his mind. And anyway, we will hear about that later.
I have another question, Maharaj, related to similar thing Nilamani Prabhu asked. How is our Kshetra and the Kshetra of the living beings which we are interacting with, whether it is in our body or external to it, limiting to each one of our experiences and its relationship with the Paramatma? I don't know whether I'm phrasing my question properly. But like Paramatma in my heart is dictating sort of my wanderings or my desires or controlling and coordinating with the Adideva, Adibhuta and Adhyatma. But if there's another living being, or whether it is insects or whatever other living beings in my body, how is the Kshetra limited or interrelated?
Yeah.
The field of activity.
Yeah, we are limited to the field of our activities and to the directions or possibilities that Paramatma gives us. But it's a bit inconceivable for us, because you have the Paramatma in the heart of one people and the Paramatma in the heart of others, and they cooperate. But you see that on book distribution, that Paramatma sent you people who are interested. That they want to know the absolute truth, and somewhere they come to your path when you go with a book, and that's wonderful. I've seen that many times. How Krishna sends people to us through Paramatma. So he does different things at the same time, but how he does it and why he does it, it's inconceivable for us. We are not a Paramatma. But certainly, like Krishna does different things at the same time, Paramatma does also has different purposes at the same time. Because sometimes he uses us to give a reaction to other people, to other devotees even, that to help them, to purify them. And that does not mean that you will not get a reaction from it, but yes, that's all going on. You have to be careful. He reciprocates with our desires. Good. Does that help?
Yes, thank you, Maharaj. Thank you.
Okay, good, and I wish you a nice day and a nice weekend, and look forward to see you on Monday morning. Monday morning I will still be in Halifax, my last day, and then in the afternoon I'm traveling back to Montreal. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Bol.